this tax relief. One, so they can continue to grow. Two, so we can add 1.5 million new jobs. And three, we can protect them against a future Washington trying to steal back those hard-earned dollars that you and Republican Congress has given them. So thank you very much for having us here today.
And the time of submittal, what would you think that would be, Kevin?
So we anticipate the House voting on this in September and the Senate setting a timetable as well.
Well, that's great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Alec Velshi. You were just listening to President Trump. What a difference a day makes. Apparently it was much ado about nothing. You just heard him say, quote, "I have full faith in our intelligence agencies." That's a direct contradiction to what we witnessed from Helsinki yesterday. Joining me now, MSNBC host Katie Tur, host of Hardball Chris Matthews, NBC News Hans Nichols at the White House and on Capitol Hill, MSNBC's Garrett Haake. The president also said that he misspoke, Katie Tur. He said that yesterday, when he said, "I see no reason why it would be Russia," he said he meant wouldn't be. I just want to play this back. Let's listen to what the president actually said yesterday that basically turned the world upside down, and then what he said about it. Listen.
All I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be. I said the word would instead of wouldn't, and the sentence should have been, and I thought I would be maybe a little bit unclear on the transcript or unclear on the actual video. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Sort of a double negative. So you can put that in, and I think that probably clarifies things pretty good by itself.
Well, that sorts the whole thing out. So thanks for watching MSNBC. Our coverage what did he just do?
I almost jumped the gun because it's laughable. It is ludicrous that he's trying to explain that away by saying, I just forgot to say one word. It's as if he expected us or thinks that we all were wearing blindfolds and had earplugs in for the rest of that news conference and for his interview with Sean Hannity later tonight and for his tweets and all of the behavior that he's shown, and expect us to believe that that was really just a tiny misspeak that he did, that he meant to say not and he said would. That's ludicrous. Last night on Sean Hannity, he was asked about Putin's denial, and he said, quote, "Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial," once again siding with Vladimir Putin. Trump also said in the news conference yesterday that the U.S. has been foolish for investigating Russian collusion, and we are all to blame, and the probe is ridiculous. He called it a witch hunt. He called the probe a witch hunt yesterday morning. He said our relationship has never been worse now, that changed 4 hours ago, and that he can't make decisions on foreign policy to appease partisan critics. It is
so
ludicrous.
All of this suggests that he didn't misspeak yesterday.
It is ludicrous for people to expect us to believe the president when he says that just now. It is ludicrous for the president to expect us to believe it. You have to wonder what's been going on behind the scenes at the White House today, and how many people have gone up to the president and said, you need to fix this. Notice he was reading from typed remarks. It reminded me a lot of what happened in Charlottesville after he said the both sides thing, and he said there were a lot of fine people marching with the white supremacists. When he was forced to go out and make an apology and to walk it back, he read from prepared remarks. He read them. He couldn't speak from the heart about racism. A day later, hours later, whatever it was, he walked that back again and went back to his true feelings, which was that he felt that both sides were to blame and that there were very fine people. Watch for what the president says in the coming hours. Watch for what the president says tomorrow. I don't think anybody can call this a clarification or in any way argue that it mitigates the
Well,
disastrous
it's a
news conference
strange,
that happened yesterday.
it's as strange an explanation, Chris Matthews, as one can come up with. And it's worth noting that in the same comments the president made, he also said it could be other people also. There's a lot of people out there. So to accept that the president misspoke accepts the fact that that sentence he uttered yesterday was weirdly out of character for the way, as Katie says, the way the president's been characterizing the Mueller investigation and the relationship to Russia. It wasn't. He wasn't out of character today. To suggest that he meant to say wouldn't as opposed to would doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, everything Katie said, as usual, is correct. I mean, really brilliantly put, I thought. The only thing I'd add is something I wrote back in 1988, a book called Hardball, about technique and explaining how spin works. Spin is a two-step process. The first thing you do is you say something that your audience wants to hear. I made a mistake. Then, oh, he's being honest with us. And in that moment when they're buying it, you then tell them to lie again. You say, I meant to say would not. It's a two-step. And I'll tell you, the nightly news, the evening news, all the straight media tonight will cover this as an actual event, that he admitted he made a mistake. And then they will say that this mistake he admitted making was that he didn't put the word nut in. This is the way you game the straight media. You accept them. It's very mechanical. You watch tonight. You will see this in the front page of the New York Times. You'll see it even in adversary media. They will all give him credit for having admitted he made a mistake so that he could lie again. This is a technique, and I bet you he gets away with it. I'll bet you everybody tonight plays that stupid thing today that he admitted this little mistake. It's a game. It's a technique. It's called spin.
And I think we have to.
I want to comment right there on what they're talking about. The fact of the matter is, our intel, which our chief and commander is right on, has not been 100% accurate. Whenever you look at how that they did not disclose the truth about what was conducted on 9/11, that was probably one of the biggest failures of intel that the American people have ever witnessed and viewed on live, actual, true TV. Plus, you got to look at the facts. Like Obama said, if I'm standing in front of a table and I call it a table and you call it an elephant, somebody hadn't got their facts right. You got to look at the facts, and the facts is that we went to war with Saddam Hussein and spent over $4 trillion, and God only knows at the casualties, the arms, the legs, the fingers, the feet, the eyes, the ears that got damaged, not counting the human casualties. We went to war with a country that we really and truly should not have went to war with after 9/11. It was a total cover-up. And the fact of the matter is, if we was going to go to war with anybody, it should have been the very people that masterminded 9/11, that the intel, our intel, is now still covering up to this day. Because of the love relationship that the Bushes and the Saudis, going back to the crude oil tycoon industry, had. And whenever it comes to national security, that is high treason that put us where we are right now towards being trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. And I'll say once and I'll say again, 2 thumbs up to our chief and commander towards looking at the bigger picture. And whenever I say the bigger picture, what is there, like 340 million people here in America compared to 7 billion people on the planet, almost 8 billion people. God bless our chief and commander towards him defining the priorities in the regard of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few towards going to Russia and trying to straighten out the very thing that Intel tried to destroy. You know, there comes a time whenever the American people has to wake up. And whenever it comes to cutting your own noses off to despite your faces, the people that we have hired to protect us and take care of us, and the people that's supposed to be in charge of our protection, has greatly failed us. I mean, just look at our computer data system. Look at how that we have been breached and hacked again and again and again, regardless whether it's Sony or Wells Fargo or other big companies throughout the United States. There has not been no type of defense system made in the regard of protecting us from oncoming intruders, predators that want to take our lives and totally destroy it, digitally speaking. Digitally speaking. Just like hacking into one's banking account, and the next thing you know, all your money's gone. So you can't tell me that what our chief and commander is trying to do is bringing transparency in the regard of the failures of our intel communities, regardless whether it be the GNC, the CIA, the FBI, other type of intelligence organizations. You can't tell me that these people have not drastically failed the American people. We ain't seen nobody fly no airplanes off into, let's say, the Kremlin over in Russia. We ain't seen nobody take airplanes and fly them off into the Prime Minister over in China. We ain't seen nothing on that level nowhere else on this planet other than right here in the good old USA. So whenever it comes to our chief and commander bringing transparency in the fact of chastising, bringing retribution to our intel communities here in America, 2 thumbs up, Mr. President. They got it coming because they did not properly clean their plates right whenever it comes to them protecting and taking care of the American people. In addition to their profound, pathetic techniques that they have used on various people. And if you don't believe me, you can look up Ted Gunderson. You can look him up and see just exactly what I'm talking about. These tactics, these practices that law enforcement agencies has been involved in has been nothing more than vigilante type tactics. And they have brought disgrace to our land over here that we call the free and the brave. They have brought harm. They have brought hurt to our lives. And this is where the American people need to stand up. And I don't care if it's one news agency pertaining to fake news or manipulated news or another news agency. The fact of the matter is these news agencies, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have been right there in behind whatever that the law enforcement agencies has promoted to them, and they have been gullible and they have ate it up hook, line, and sinker. And it didn't matter if it was right or wrong. It didn't matter if it was obvious or not obvious. They went ahead and projected what they was told to project. And to me, that is not a free, open, fair society. One other thing I want to say. Whenever they get to judging Russia and the Russian practices that Russia has been involved in. First of all, Russia is no longer Russia. Whenever the Berlin Wall fell, it's no longer considered the Yugoslavia or the old USSR. Now it's called the Federation. They are being picked on towards having a lot of blood on their doorstep pertaining to what that they have been involved in. You know, I don't know the reasons why that they have done what they have done, regardless whether it be Yugoslavia or some of the other people that they have went in and tried to colonize. I'm sure they have their own reasons, but whenever you get to looking at the United States' practices, going all the way back to how that they slaughtered the Native American red man pertaining to various Indian groups, whenever you get to looking at how that we have brought blood up onto our own doorstep in regard to the assassination of JFK or the assassination of Martin Luther King, or even local law enforcement people that has tried to implement the law the best way that they could implement the law, such as Buford Pulser or other people here in the United States that has stepped on some toes because of the power, the money, the struggle, the reputations. We got just as much blood on us over here as they got on them over there. And I'm reflecting upon the paraphrase of what Jesus said, "He that have no sin, let him cast the first stone." We're trying to throw stones up onto the Federation over on another part of the world, and the fact of the matter is we got just as much dirt on us over here, if not more, than what they got on them over there. So, you know, the president can say he made a mistake in his wording, in which if he did, he did. If he didn't, he didn't. But I really truly believe that he has our interest at heart. And the fact of the matter is, with so much technology out there and so much information out there and so much media out there, he's not just dealing with one particular entity. He's dealing with several entities all over the world. And whenever you get to looking at the needs of the many versus the needs of the few, like I said, you know, God bless the American people, and I stand behind America 100% because I am an American. But whenever it comes to us saying that we are invincible or that we are beyond making mistakes of our own, we're actually only being very, very arrogant in wanting to believe that we're beyond making mistakes, or that we're beyond having blood on our doorstep the same as other nations throughout the world. Like I said, they can call it whatever they want to call it. But the bottom line is, we are in trouble as a nation. We are trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. And if there's ever come a time that united we stand, divided we fall, that we needed to become united with a strong, powerful nation, regardless whether you want to call them an adversary or not. We have never been at war, per se, with the Russians. And you got to look at the fact that during World War II, once we realized how things was way out of beat pertaining to the Nazisms, the Aryanism that went on during that time, Russia and the United States pulled together, and they sacrificed a whole lot more patriots or a whole lot more soldiers than what we did I think in comparison, we sacrificed about 2 million in comparison to about their 12 million, or maybe even 20 million. There was a lot of bloodshed that went on towards trying to stop a ruthless dictator such as Hitler or even Napoleon. So whenever it comes to throwing stones, I do hope and pray that we will come to our senses and that we will understand the crucialness and what's actually on the table whenever it comes to what's at stake here. I'm going to end by letting this play out. Good luck to all of us, and shalom.
Might have happened, but the fact is, if we have evidence from our intelligence community and lots of other people that Russia interfered in the election and continues to interfere in the election, the fact, what effect?
If interfering in the election means eavesdropping, then yes, I guess the Russians or the Federation is guilty of interfering with our election. But the bottom line is, once more, in our intel pertaining to cyberspace, we do the exact same thing in fairness, and I've tried to explain this to my viewers before. It's almost like putting a lock on something. All a lock does is help to keep an honest person honest. That if they're really and truly up to wanting to break in to that door, it don't matter if you got 1,000 locks. They're still going to get into that door. It's the same way with us listening to them and them listening to us and us listening to other countries and other parts of the world. We're only doing that so that we can help keep an honest person honest. And whenever it comes to the Federation, towards the stakes that they have pertaining to their survival rating over there in their part of the world, I feel like that they have just as much right in being nosy or eavesdropping as everybody else does towards trying to make sure that we do the proper thing. Now, the deal with the Clintons and all the emails and all the other stuff that the Clintons have been involved in pertaining to Benghazi and all that other stuff, to me, goes way beyond our president going to Russia and having a talk with Mr. Putin. That's just my opinion. It didn't cost you nothing. Once more, good luck to all of us who are striving towards the truth, righteousness, and prosperity in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
Calls for those who work in the Trump administration to step down. In a Washington Post column, Ruth Marcus writes directly to the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates, saying, quote, "You said Friday that much as with the rumblings of a terrorist attack on the United States before 9/11, the warning lights are blinking red again, this time on the danger posed by Russian cyber attacks to the 2018 elections. How do you continue to serve a president so determined to ignore those flashing lights?" With me now is MSNBC national security analyst, former FBI special agent, and author of Messaging with the Enemy, Surviving a Social Media World of Hackers, Terrorists, Russians, and Fake News, Clint Watts. Clint, this is kind of remarkable. I assume the leading principals who went to the White House today involved intelligence officials, but there have been attacks on the intelligence community since before Donald Trump became president, since his presidency. Yesterday seemed to turn an interesting corner. His appointee, Dan Coates, Republican of Indiana, widely respected, he said to the world he doesn't really believe the information.
Yes, and this is where you start to see institutions, red lights flashing. This is, what if this is the worst case scenario? Imagine being in the intelligence agencies today. You've just watched your commander-in-chief go over and take the side of your adversary who just struck you with an information attack in 2016, who is messing with you on many fronts against NATO allies, who your president advances conspiracies that the Kremlin might put out against U.S. intelligence agencies. We saw it with a tweet yesterday. This is a rigged witch hunt, the Mueller investigation. Russia, we agree.
The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs retweeted the President of the United States, who called it a witch hunt and said, "We agree." This is remarkable.
I agree too. We agree too.
President Trump advances them against Americans. He is now discrediting U.S. institutions. And I guarantee inside the country today,
Our president is a straight shooter. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, odds are it's a duck. The American people, full of their hypocrisy, has been so full of it to the point that whenever they do make a mistake, they don't want to admit to their mistakes because of their pride. Well, I'm sorry, but there's been mistakes made in the past 25, 30 years since the Berlin Wall has fallen. And lots of them. And we're not just talking about mistakes over on the other side of the continent are pertaining to the Russians. We're talking about mistakes right here. Once more, he who have no sin, let him throw the first rock.
But then to find out that the ultimate boss sort of doesn't really believe in the value of what you're doing, that has got to make you question your very work. And we are talking about hundreds of thousands of people. If you add the Department of Justice, which is constantly under fire, you're up to well over 200 to 300 people, 300,000 people employed.
not only that, the Department of Justice,
well, they're not doing their jobs.
In Helsinki, takes an indictment against a Russian agent they believe to be infiltrating a U.S. organization tied to a political party. This is what more evidence do you need that this is a five-alarm fire in our country right now?
But then what happens? Because the president...
The five-alarm fire began back in 9/11, my friend.
Putin, we know what you're up to. We won't have it anymore. Even if he didn't offer any material threat as to what was going to happen, just the idea that to say, we know what you're up to. John McLaughlin and I were talking about it last night, that you know in the world of spycraft that someone's lying to you, but your job is to let them know that you know they're lying to you.
Right.
We didn't even do that.
We didn't even do that. We didn't even bring up the indictment. That is the most detailed indictment I've ever seen of a foreign adversary put out in public, down to dates, locations, and names. In cyberspace, that is unprecedented.
Right, that indictment told us how the Russians interfered in the election. Specifics, names, locations, methodology.
Not only that, we don't even know how our allies might have supported us in this. In the Netherlands, there are claims in the public press that they helped support us. In the UK, they helped support us. And what did we see the week before? Degradation of NATO, taking a slap at the UK. These allies tried to warn us. And so if you're in these U.S. intelligence agencies right now, I think the message is we need to move forward. You continue to